Thanks to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this video. Horror games. Everyone loves them, and hates them. Horror games tend to be that special place in the video game catalog where gamers venture to get that certain feeling of suspense, thrill, and of course, a good jump scare. Now, most of the popular horror games that have come out recently tend to last a while, usually in the 10 to 25 hour range. I don't know about you, but some days I'm not trying to dedicate that many hours into wear and tear on my body and heart because of the stress that these games induce. So what if I told you that you could experience a heart-pounding, nerve-wracking, sweat-inducing experience for a fraction of the price and with less time investment? Indie horror games. Usually designed by one developer or a handful, indie horror games aren't tied to any restrictions or corporate suits guiding them to accommodate towards the general public. These developers make games with passion. They also make them to mortify you. I've been playing a ton of indie horror games throughout my life, and I truly believe that these games are important. Not only to play by yourself, but to simply experience them in general. They can be silly, thought-provoking, or acid-dropping psychedelic trips that leave you on the ground, only to awake realizing that there's more to life than what you already know. A little bit dramatic, sorry about that, but I wanted to go ahead and showcase some indie horror games that I feel you should play at least once if possible, and showcase why I truly believe that indie horror games are important. A fantastic website where I tend to look for these games is itch.io. It's a fancy little website that hosts all types of smaller developed titles. If for some reason you can't access itch.io because of region lock, let me tell you about our sponsor, Surfshark VPN. I'll be honest here, I have never used a VPN before the sponsors of today's video contacted me. I'm glad they did. VPNs are kinda cool, making me feel like a real-life hacker from the movies. With a couple of mouse clicks, I'm in the system and getting what I want. Surfshark VPN keeps your online identity safe by encrypting all of the information sent between your device and the internet. This keeps your personal data protected from big companies or cybercriminals. Also, a VPN swaps the real location of your device with a new one. This way you can virtually travel any country around the globe. Wanna watch that new show on Netflix, but your country doesn't stream it yet? Use Surfshark VPN. Want to access that one website that has a cool game, but you can't seem to access it? Use Surfshark VPN. Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk to try it out. Get an exclusive Surfshark Black Friday deal. Enter promo code SAVIOR to get up to 6 additional months for free at surfshark.deals/savior. The link to this will be in the description, because remember, with Surfshark VPN, you can watch, read, and play all of the things you want online, especially games on itch.io. Like this one game, Chordosis. This game's atmosphere is incredible, from the visuals, the sounds, and overall tension. I was a bit confused with the physics though. Came back. God, dude. Jesus. Oh my god. I mean, you give me an item to pick up in a game, you best believe I'm gonna throw it. Walked around the water feature that I could easily frisbee. God damn! I launched that. And the inventory is definitely something to get used to. What the hell? But don't let this distract you from the idea that this game isn't scary. The game's main horror element is UFOs and aliens. And while the first chapter that's available introduces you to the core mechanics, movements, and problem solving, I loved what was already here. Hello? Albeit, it's on the shorter side, only having one chapter out currently, but they really have raised the bar from what I can get from a horror experience. To me, the opening felt like a Stephen King novel. It set the mood beautifully and had me question how this game was gonna scare me. Was it gonna be a cheap jump scare? Possibly a sound hitting a loud note causing me to flinch? Nope, this game just used proper horror techniques. Good old simple environment storytelling, allowing the mind to fill in the spaces and mentally deconstruct it at the same time. Once the demo was over, I wanted more instantly. The game isn't done yet, but what the developer has shown for what's on the roadmap, I'd say this is an experience you need to keep an eye on. Also, the ladder movement is wild. Then you have games that start off on itch.io but manage to get enough funding from that to allow the game to go over onto something like Steam. Introducing the first game to make me feel genuinely uncomfortable in my own skin. From the Darkness. Gotta open this bad boy up. Wow. I don't want to go in there. The premise of this game is that the player goes to their deceased grandfather's apartment to look for a photo album. But unnatural events occur, and yeah, it gets weird.
Is that a guy standing? Hey, what happens if I walk in here? Actually, you know what? I'm not. No, I don't want to be in there anymore. Oh, my body's all warm. I'm sweating.
The reason why this game makes me feel uncomfortable is because it forces the player to move forward into the darkness. Which, yes, this happens in almost every horror game, but the sounds, combined with the flashing of lights and the uneasy noises,
hello?
That are done extremely well, leave a tender chill continuously coursing down my back.
Thank you.
Huh. The game doesn't rely heavily on jump scares. It uses a small environment that the player gets familiar with and slowly starts to meticulously change minor details to put the player on edge. Something about being in a small, confined space that slowly changes small details, forcing you to focus on the same objects, but at the same time you want to look away and avoid being scared, is so cruel, yet I love it. I can't really show much more of the game without spoiling most of it. Just know that the whole experience can take you between 1 to 2 hours, and if you're sensitive to flashing lights, I'd probably stay away, or just be mindful of that going in. And if flashing lights just aren't your thing, and you'd prefer that traditional jump scare method, Summer of '58 is your best friend.
Oh, God, Jesus. What is the point of night vision if it's just like 5 feet in front of you?
Similar to the last game, the visuals, sound design, and atmosphere are here, but this game's whole scare mechanic is jump scares, and most people are over the whole, jump scare method, but this game does it fairly well with what they're working with.
Or some. Christ, holy. Oh my.
What really helps this game is the sound design. Whether it's earbuds, headphones, or speakers, the sound is incredibly realistic, to the point where I thought someone was genuinely knocking on my door.
Nothing happens unless you move to...
It's set in a Russian summer camp where you're tasked with trying to appease your social media followers by putting to rest a tale about restless souls cursing the buildings throughout the years. It's got everything to create a haunting story and makes you just not want to move any closer to certain rooms. But in order to progress, you have to keep moving around and exploring a small space that you don't want to be in. The difference with this and From the Darkness is that, well, you'll notice when you've triggered something.
The f are you? What? I have never...
Surprise, surprise, it's on the shorter side again, taking you around 2 hours to complete, but it does the exact job that you'd want it to do, scare you. Let me ask you a question. While you're liking and subscribing to see more of my content, what makes a horror game actually scary? Is it the atmosphere, the sounds, or perhaps the idea that something is right behind you? No? Nothing? Okay, well, I tried. Well, let me tell you about Chillas Art, a developer who combines everything we all know and love about horror games and explores them beautifully through their entire catalog of games. They tend to coast around the same ideas, a normal job or lifestyle that takes a wrong turn, and what follows next is complete horror. In night delivery, you deliver packages in the middle of the night. In the convenience store, you work at a convenience store. In night security, you work at a night security job. I think you're getting the idea. It's a simple premise for a game, but what the developers managed to pull off here is something unique. They add folklore and traditional horror tales into these mundane jobs and really flip them on their head. Chillas Art is a game company founded by 2 Japanese brothers, and as you may have noticed, their graphic style tends to resemble early PlayStation 1 graphics, which just adds another layer of uneasy feeling, because for most, seeing an old PlayStation 1 game can bring a young, natured, nostalgic feeling into their mind. But when you twist and turn that graphic style to match the themes of psychological horror, that childlike interest starts turning into a mature nightmare. My favorite game in their collection is Parasocial. You play as a girl named Nina, a VTuber making a living by streaming games. You live in an apartment by yourself, but you have your best friend Asuka who comes to visit you, so you're not too lonely. Until one day, after completing a game sent by a viewer, your face is suddenly revealed and then things start getting very uncomfortable. What's haunting about this game is the reality of it all. With the previous ones mentioned, there's always some hint of folklore or ghostly encounters, but Parasocial tells a story that, for most of us, hits incredibly close to home. Most of our lives primarily exist online, as an alias or a name that isn't in any resemblance to who we are outside of the digital screens we hold in our hands. Once someone rips that away from you and begins to make both sides of your life a living hell, and now you can't feel safe in either one, that's true horror. I loved this game and most of the games created by Chillas Art. Sure, they aren't perfect by any means with some puzzle solving or slower in between moments, but the stories they manage to tell in these quick 1 to 2 hour games is really special. Also, they usually have 2 or more endings, which is a nice welcome. And of course, not every indie horror game needs to be taken seriously. We have games like The Last Monday, a short horror experience with Garfield the cat. Let's just do this real quick. Late Night Mop, where you clean a house with a fantastic mop. Also, the house is haunted. Oh, hey. I gotta finish cleaning this house. If you could just thank you. Slide in the woods. This is it. It's just a slide in the woods. Oh. Why did it get really dark? We've also seen a surge of co-op indie horror games taking on popular styles, with inspiration from the Backrooms being one. Oh my god! Close the door! Close the
We should call it. Mine.
Yeah, we should. We were supposed to close it. It got caught in the door. Thank God. Holy. Indie horror can take any shape or form that it desires, and at the end of the day, it's up to the developers if they want to make some thought-provoking nightmares or a game about lasagna. However, there is one game to take seriously, and that game is Devotion. The story of Devotion takes place in Taipei, 1987, and opens up with the main character enjoying a relaxing evening watching television in the living room of his apartment while his wife chats with him about his young daughter, Mei Xian. But just as she's about to finish bringing dinner to the table, she asks the question, The main character blinks and opens up his eyes to find himself still in front of his TV set, but now it's only picking up static. He's alone in the dark and his apartment has been wrecked. He sets out to find his daughter. What happened? How did he get here? And most importantly, where is his daughter? Devotion is a unique, tightly written, and emotionally charged story that goes in places few other horror games dare to go. The themes in the game about mental illness, along with obsession and devotion, carry you through the story on a roller coaster of feelings and emotions. It's atmospheric without relying on the traditional tropes that most horror games showcase. To me, the game is a thrilling, poetic journey that kept me glued to my screen for its entire playthrough. Devotion is a horror tale that avoids categorizing itself solely as a horror game. It succeeds as a drama with intense emotion, a history lesson on Taiwan, and a journey rich in creative symbolism. This is a psychological story that is deeply upsetting, but is completely worth it in the end. I'm telling you, if you have the chance to play this and you can admire a good story in a video game, please play this. I didn't know what I was stepping into when starting Devotion. I was told that it's one of the most important indie horror games by a couple of my friends, and after playing it, I would have to agree. There's also some music created for the game that you hear once you complete it, and it is 100% worth it. Indie horror games are special. There are quite literally hundreds of these games, some good, and some, well, not so good. I know I've missed so many games in this video, but if I were to talk about all the ones that I've enjoyed, we'd probably be here for at least 40 hours or more. So I've shown some games that make your skin crawl, but why are they important? To me, these games are important because they inject innovation, diversity, risk-taking, and emotional depth into the horror gaming genre. They prove that great horror experiences can be created with limited resources, and they contribute to the growth and diversification of the gaming industry while engaging a broad audience. After playing more and more indie games, I've really found some fantastic stories that have left new thoughts in my mind. Thoughts that showed me horror games don't always need to be a bombastic showcase of action, gore, and hiding from monsters. I wish people would go ahead and give indie horror games more of a chance, similar to how we give normal indie titles a chance. So many people are missing out on brilliant storytelling and new experiences just because we label horror with the idea that it's going to be scary. When in reality, underneath the horror, there's actually a story waiting to be understood, accepted, and loved. And if you love this video, you'll probably love my others. Thank you again, Surfshark VPN, for sponsoring this video. Okay, bye.